Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a good Sunday. I'm Dave Sutliff-Atias, and if you didn't know, I would think you would if you were here. I'm running for Rochester City Council in the East District, and we're going to talk this week about cooperatives and what they are and how we can support them in Rochester and why we need them so desperately, more than we already have, because it's a very underutilized resource, whatever you want to call it. Something we're not using in the way we should be here in Rochester. So before I get into that, and as people are coming on board, I just want to do a little housekeeping stuff. Don't forget the website, daveforchange.org. I noticed some of you out there are making donations to campaigns that are happening in 2020. That's awesome, but there's some folks running in 2019 who could use your support as well, and you can donate as well as check out all of the things that I'm trying to do with my campaign over at daveforchange.org. Tell all your friends about it too. There's already something up there about cooperatives with a bunch of links that you can follow to learn more about them. But I'm going to add more to both this video when we're done, as well as when we put this up on YouTube. Same video, we just posted in another place, and I'll have links there, and I'll tell you about what those links are in just a little bit. So I keep wanting to talk about the environment and climate change, and I'm a green. We're supposed to be tree huggers, right? Well, things keep happening in Rochester that make other things move to the top of the list. And one of the things that happened this past week that made me go, okay, environment's going to get put off another week, is the announcement that Hart's grocery store is closing in a week or two. Maybe any day now. I don't remember the date. So I'm not surprised. I don't think there's anybody going, yay, it's closing. But a lot of folks weren't surprised. And the business model was a little interesting, and really I was curious to see if the people who live in that general area would be enough to sustain a grocery store like that. It was pretty expensive. It was on the higher end in terms of what they sold and for the cost. And so what got me to say, okay, we need to talk about cooperatives this week is because everyone's talking about Hart's grocery closing. And they were given a $75,000 grant by the city to help them open up. And I'm not in favor of that. I'll just be honest with you. If we're going to use our tax dollars, our money, to help businesses, I think while, yes, Hart's Grocery was a locally owned store, I would rather see our money go to things that are democratic, small d, as well as things that are for people who are in more desperate need of the basics, food, clothing, shelter. And I think right now that's what we should be using our tax money for, because there are so many kids going to bed hungry, and people who don't have adequate housing, which is ridiculous, which is for a talk at another time. And to use even $75,000 towards a store like this, as opposed to the number of smaller businesses, and especially co-ops, which I'll get to in just one second, I'm getting there, I think would have been a better use of money, especially with the business idea of this grocery store selling what it does, or soon to be did, and in that neighborhood. So, but giving $75,000 to an entity like this, as well as all of the corporate welfare we give out to bigger projects, the city literally writes grant checks that are six figures to developers, the Sibley building, a whole bunch of others. And that really is considered, it's hoping that there's trickle-down economics, that actually works. And we know it doesn't. Study after study has shown that trickle-down economics doesn't work, and that's what this corporate welfare is. Whether it's $200,000 for whatever big project, or $75,000 to a local corporation like Hart's. So what we should be doing, I'm not saying we shouldn't be using our money for economic development. What I am saying is we should be using our money a little bit better in a different way. And what we should be doing is we should be supporting smaller businesses, even smaller than Hart's Grocery, and something that doesn't take quite as much, possibly. And we should be doing that spread out a little bit more. So I would like to see 100 co-ops supported a year. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. But before I do, why don't I tell you what a co-op is if you're not sure. So they come in many forms, but generally it's when the workers have a say in how a company is run, and they tend to own it as well. And there are member-owned co-ops like Abundance. Abundance Cooperative is a member-based cooperative. I'm a member at Abundance, and a while back I paid $100 to become a member, and for that I get a little bit of a discount. But I wouldn't advocate for a lot of, and Abundance got a lot of money as well to open up their new store, but they don't pay the workers very well. Hearts didn't pay the workers well either, and the workers don't really have a say in how things are run. And so putting our economic development money towards businesses and co-ops like that, I'm not an advocate of that. You also have corporations and companies that are say they're worker owned, but really what it is they have shares of stock in the company. So they do have a stake in how the company does, and they may get a little bit of say in how some macro issues are worked out, but it's more in terms of you get shares in the company. And that's okay too, but that's not quite what I'm talking about. I would like to see the type of cooperative happen, or more, hundreds of them all at once, happen that the workers actually own the company and they make decisions on what the company should do together. And it might not be every single company or every single decision is made by every single member of the cooperative. For example, let me say a bakery. Okay, a cooperatively owned bakery where all the workers run it, where like they're going to get together every day and decide, hey, what kind of muffins are going to be made today. That's not what I'm talking about. A company would never be able to function if it had to make those minute decisions on a day-to-day basis together as a cooperative. I'm talking about infrastructure of the building, what they should do with the profits that come in. Major decisions and it is a slow process, but it does work out. And there are a ton of videos on YouTube that show how cooperatives work, and the process is that it's just way much better than a top-down decision company. And I think our tax dollars should be going towards more democratically run institutions. And obviously that's a cooperative. So as I was saying before, I think we should use our economic development money to start 100 cooperatives a year. And I know what you're saying, but Dave, you're assuming that they're all going to be successful, and we're just actually I'm not, and I'm actually assuming that most of them are not going to be successful. And that's one of the reasons why I think we need to go more in quantity, quality, the best that we can, obviously. But I think that we should be taking some chances with this on smaller businesses, smaller grants, and many of them. So let's say we only hit 20%. That's 20 new businesses, cooperatives that we've helped start in a year. That's pretty good. If there's 20 new businesses every year, yeah, there's 80 that failed. But here's the thing. We also know that almost every business a person starts for the first time fails. The stats are there that if you're an entrepreneur, that most of the time, just about all the time, your first business is going to fail. And by doing this, making it a small business and a cooperative, any of them that fail, one, folks get experience in running a business. Two, they get experience in running a business democratically in terms of making decisions as a group. And three, it gives the city and the people who will be dealing with this, and I'm going to get to that too because we already have the infrastructure for that, a little bit more, some more data and some statistics on what makes a co-op run well in this city, what kind of businesses are needed, and where to put the support in for the next year, for the next 100. And I would not say if you were in a co-op that didn't succeed or wasn't successful, that you wouldn't be allowed to be in a cooperative that got support down the road. No, like I said, if you can show that there's learning from that, then by all means. And I don't want it to be just any kind of business. I think that because of the needs that we have in the city in terms of our poverty rate and the conditions that a lot of our children are living in, I think that the support that our tax dollars should go to in terms of these co-ops, they should be on necessities: food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, daycare. There could be some other things as well, but stuff that has a trickle-up effect on the communities. Things that, because if people have enough to eat and they have safe places to live and they don't have to worry about their health care, they may not participate in the drug industry. You know what I'm saying? They may not commit certain crimes that we're worried about. And trauma and stress level will go down in our communities when a lot of these needs are being taken care of, because a lot of the behaviors we see really tend to be families breaking apart, the trauma of that, the trauma of living in generational abject poverty, and if we support these co-ops that do that run along these lines, and not that there's anything wrong with a shoe store or a hair salon, or so, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying for right now, our economic development money should be going to businesses that really are meeting the needs of the community as well, while having the people who are cooperatively running these businesses having their financial needs being met as well. So I would like to see those 100 co-ops that are started every year and businesses that would have a trickle-up effect. Let me give you an example. I wanted to make sure I did this. I have some notes here. So let's say we in an area that's really having some trouble. Why don't I go with some friends of mine and I who are into the local politics stuff. We talk about Remington Street. I actually grew up in that area in 14621. If you drive down Remington Street and in the area, Dale Street, and that's where some of my family was, Avenue D, things like that, you see a lot of empty land. You see places where houses used to be. And we should be supporting urban agriculture in some of those spaces. But by the same token, along with that, we should be supporting some co-ops that would use what's grown in those urban farms. So that would be grocery stores, something that's more than just like selling Doritos and Sprite. I think we should also have bakeries and restaurants and things that would use the food that's grown in the urban agriculture, in the urban farms. In places where there's rec centers, having a cooperatively run daycare center as well. And in places where there's low income housing, cooperatively run healthcare centers. I don't think they're going to be able, if they're cooperatively run, I don't think they're going to be able to be tied to the U of R or Rochester Regional Health, whatever they call themselves now. And that's okay. And if we give them the right support, I think they can thrive just in the neighborhood if they're just dealing with folks in the neighborhood. It doesn't need to be a high, doesn't need to take a lot of resources to get something going, especially if a lot of it's preventative. And I know, like on Arnett Boulevard, there's a doctor's office. They are tied into Rochester Regional, but I don't think they're run cooperatively. So you can definitely do something smaller in the neighborhood rather than having to go out to Strong or Highland or something that's big in emergency room type procedures for stuff that doesn't need it. We're also trying to fight climate change. And yes, like I said at the beginning of this, I'm working on, I have a platform plank that's going to be unveiled. It's going to be released, and I'm going to be talking about it here. And, but for things that deal with climate change, just some of the things in terms of landscaping and contracting to retrofit houses and to make housing more, heating and cooling more efficient, we could have cooperatively run contracting and landscaping companies. And those are actually not that difficult to start up. And there's a long history across the country, across the world actually, of having operations like that. And those should be based in the city, owned and operated by people in the city cooperatively. That's where we are. So it's not just a win for the people who are working in these when we do it correctly. Because if we support the right businesses in the right places, then it's really going to take care of, it's going to have an exponential effect on how our city functions. And I really think it would also ease a lot of the burden on social services, at the county level and state, as well as the police force, which we've talked about that, and I'm sure I'm going to do another weekly chat on policing as well, because it's really, really important. And I think that some of the resources there can be used. Wouldn't it be interesting if we had a cooperatively run police force? I just thought of that right now. I don't even know how that would work. I guess they would might get rid of the ranks. I think the union might have a problem with that. Okay, anyway, so I have some, this is actually it. That's my whole thing on what we should be doing. We should be basically, instead of these huge grants that go to a few projects, and even for things like the Finger Lakes Hunger Games or whatever they call it, that we should be using our economic development money, whether it's local stuff from our local budget or money we get in from the state or even federal governments, and we should be really focusing on smaller co-ops. And if you want to learn more about this, and like I said, I'm going to put links in, but here are just some references. You can check out the Evergreen Cooperative in Cleveland. And what happened is back in 2013, well, first of all, I'm running as a Green. And the Green Party has been advocating for cooperative economics pretty much since it's been a political party. And locally, myself as well as a bunch of other folks ran in for office in 2013. Alex White ran for mayor, as well as a few of us ran for city council. Me, Drew Langdon, Dorothy Page, and Emily Good ran for sheriff. Lori Thomas ran for school board. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody else. And I think I am, and I'm sorry. But anyway, one of the things we really hammered away at was cooperative economics and co-ops. And all of us kept mentioning Evergreen, especially the city council candidates and Alex running for mayor. And that was when Mayor Warren ran for mayor the first time. And after that, through her Office of Special Initiatives, they actually hired some folks from Cleveland that are connected to Evergreen to come in, and there was some grant money and that gave them the chance to come in and kind of study how we do things here and made some suggestions. And from that, the Office of Innovations came out with Own Rochester. And you can check them out at ownrochester.coop. So it's ownrochester.coop, and that's actually a domain. And their goal is to help foster co-ops. And they're too small. They don't have the resources. They're not doing nearly what we need. And a lot of the money can funnel through the Office of Innovation and Own Rochester. So we have the infrastructure to be able to start supporting these co-ops already. It's nothing we need to reinvent. And there are national nonprofits who actually help co-ops get started in terms of teaching people how to run things democratically. And they do great jobs. And again, there's a lot of YouTube videos, and there's a lot of websites that can kind of gear you towards that. And this is nothing that I'm inventing. This is nothing that anyone here in Rochester has to invent, because we already have the infrastructure and people have been doing it all over the place. Another place you can check out online is any information on Mondragon, and that's in Spain. And that's probably one of the oldest and most famous, and it's huge, a cooperative. I mean, that's almost like its own city now. They have their own banks, and it's just amazing. And there are a lot of long, I'm not going to call them boring. You really have to be into this stuff, but they're really long documentaries on Mondragon that you can watch. And there's shorter stuff too. A couple people who are really big in the cooperative movement that you should check out is Gar Alperovitz, and he does a lot of stuff, and he's written books on cooperative economics, and he's really good. But the guy I really like, and I think I've mentioned his name on these before, is Richard Wolff with 2 Fs. And he does a weekly show. I don't know if it's on any TV station, like a direct TV thing. It's definitely on YouTube. There's a YouTube channel, and I get it in podcast form every week. I listen to it every week in podcast form. And Democracy at Work, I believe, is the name of the group that Richard works out of. He's also a professor. And I really enjoy the way he explains economics, particularly co-ops. And if you get a chance to look up some Richard Wolff stuff, I highly recommend you do. I think he presents things in a real, to me, entertaining, but I guess I'm kind of a dork that way. But, and I'm going to put links to all these both on the Facebook video, and then this goes over to YouTube. You'll have links to go check some of this stuff out. And if you go to dayforchange.org in the issues section, and when you look at cooperatives, there's links embedded within that as well. So you can spend days looking at this stuff. But my point is, I'm saying we can do this. This is not difficult, and it just takes a little bit of political will. It really does, to just say, you know what, we're not going to write 6-figure checks to these developers, these rich developers. Instead, we're going to take that money and we're going to get 100 co-ops started this year that are all over the city, that are not just downtown, and that do stuff for thousands and thousands and thousands of people, because that's what would happen. And it's to me, it's a no-brainer, but we just have to have the political will to do it. And because this is the way we've always done things. We've always given big checks to rich people and hoped that they save us, and they haven't. Our poverty rate is not going in the right direction. So obviously what we're doing isn't working. And I think that really investing in the cooperative movement, I think, would. So when you elect me this November 5th, That is something I'm going to be advocating for. Now, one person in city council isn't going to be able to wave a magic wand and get all this to happen. I'm still going to be counting on you guys to talk to the other city council members and the mayor and people in city hall, and we have to organize to get some of this done. And I'll be honest with you, if I don't win, which shouldn't happen, I should be winning this. We'll talk about that down the road. But even if I don't, we still should be organizing and getting some of this done anyway. So last, I just want to reiterate, speaking of support, I definitely need yours at dayforchange.org. If you can donate, that would be great. We're doing a thing. Our fundraising effort is we've nicknamed it Change for a 20. We're trying to get as many folks to donate $20 as possible. It doesn't have to be just from Rochester, the East District in Rochester, because if we do this, if I get elected and we're successful in doing things like a better way of policing and blowing up co-ops here in town, that's going to have a ripple effect on cities and towns, definitely all over the state, but hopefully all over the country. So I think that having the first Green elected in Rochester would be a really big deal politically and would open people up to voting for third parties. And right now there's a lot of people who do agree with everything Greens are trying to do, like cooperative economics, but it's that, well, it's kind of, I feel like it's throwing away my vote, which you're not, which we are going to do a Why Vote Green talk on Facebook Live later on in the fall. So I'm saving that for down the road for when you're getting closer to making your choice in November. But definitely, you should vote Green. If you're into the stuff that I'm talking about, that's at dayforchange.org. You should vote Green and also support candidates who are running. So when you do throw $20, you get change for a 20 at the website. You get to pay for stuff like Lit. It's out. It's still warm. It's just off the presses. And I'm not even going to show you what's on the back because that's a special surprise. But like almost everything I'm doing with this campaign, like what's on the back of my Lit, there's stuff on there that helps people. That's not just, hey, vote for Dave. It's also stuff that'll help you in some other way. So the Lit has stuff on the back that will help people. I have some other ideas that are coming if we raise the money that I'd like to do that would really make a dent in some climate change stuff in the community. We have some events coming up that aren't fundraisers, that are just events that are also dealing with some Maslow hierarchy kind of stuff, food, clothing, shelter, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited about it because it's stuff that you don't normally see from campaigns, and making that happen is if we have enough in our coffers, to be honest with you. I just got to be honest with you, stuff costs money. We are in a capitalist society. Even if we put all these cooperatives in place, money's still going to be a thing. So your donation of $20 at dayforchange.org will help the campaign continue to do things that win, lose, or draw, we're going to make our neighborhoods better places just from the campaign alone. So that's it. I didn't see any other questions, but if you're watching this not live, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, and you have comments or questions, please do that. Comment and ask questions, and I will definitely respond within a day. Feel free to post this on your social media, tag people, even if they don't live in Rochester, tag people you think would be interested, tag people you think should be running for office, and say, hey, look, this guy Dave's running, and if he can do it, you can do it. And I'd be more than willing to help anybody who wants to run for office with any advice you'd care to take or ignore. But anybody who wants to put in the time to run for office, I'm more than willing to help and support them. In fact, when I sign off in just a minute or so, I have an email to send to someone who's running in East Rochester. And I'm not going to say who it is, because I don't know if they want to be outed yet. But I'm more than willing to help anybody who wants to run for office. So, dayforchange.org. You can read more about cooperatives. Ask questions, give me comments. If I got something wrong or there's something we can do better with any of my ideas, I want to know about it because I'm not a rocket scientist. I am not making any of this stuff up. I'm just doing a lot of research and talking to people and going to meetings and learning, and I'm just trying to put stuff in a cohesive, understandable way that we can do at the government level. Not everything can be changed with electoral politics. In fact, a lot can't, but this is an amazing tool to run for office and to serve, to be able to do these type of radical things that we're talking about, where workers actually own and run the businesses that they're able to enjoy the fruits of their labor. I can start spewing some rhetoric now, workers owning the means of production, that kind of stuff. But actually the last half hour has really been talking about that. It's just in a different style of rhetoric. So, dayforchange.org, comment, pass stuff around, let folks know that there's someone running that's trying to get cooperatives going, trying to do things that's trying to fight climate change. And next week we're going to be back with another talk. I hoping we're going to do climate change, but who knows what's going to happen this week that's going to make me come out and do another thing about education or something that's really more current in the news. But it's coming. I am putting the finishing touches on the environment plank. It's going to be at the website soon, and there'll be another talk. So thanks for tuning in, or thanks for watching after the live part, and we'll be back next week. And I appreciate you just getting involved and doing stuff and voting in November. Okay, next week. Bye.